This is being done in the land we grew up in, right in the city we call home. Our hearts beat for these children, so much so that it beats for a specific one. If we were to be advocates for these children, then we must first be examples. In October 2017, a pregnant mother couldn't keep her child. So with desperation, she searched for someone to be the one to hold her baby in their arms. We wanted to help, and so we did. But we never knew that it would be our hands that God would use to cradle this child. 3 weeks in, and one heartbeat more, we had her in our grasp. Our hearts were filled with love and our souls refashioned. We are no heroes, just followers answering a call. Had we chosen to reject the call, turn our heads away, or hesitate even for a moment, our child would have been one of many whose body has become a commodity. She is one less child prostituted, one less child trafficked, one less child abandoned, one less child lost in the system, one less child victim, one less orphan. But she is just one less. There are millions of children out there who may never have access to a family, access to care, to nourishment, to shelter, to safety, to a childhood. But if more people extended their arms to these children, if the stigma behind adoption was redefined to be a culture of love, then 2 less children would be trafficked, 10 less children abandoned, 1,000 less children criminals, 1,000,000 less children victims to this injustice. And instead, more children would be welcomed home by families who will treat them with love, provide them with nourishment, house them in shelter, care for their safety, and allow for them to have a childhood. Now, the call is great, but the answer is simple. It's a heart willing to serve and a courageous kind of love. It's open arms and open homes. At the ROHEI Foundation, we advocate for adoption. As of 2016, 1.8 million children in the Philippines were considered abandoned or neglected. And out of that 1.8 million, only 1,818 were placed for adoption. So as a response, the ROHEI Foundation aims to develop programs that provide holistic care for pregnant women in crisis, to rescue babies before they are abandoned and disowned, and to encourage and guide families in their adoption journey. Through this, we hope to see a world where every orphan is adopted into a family, and that all families would be empowered to move in compassion and generosity toward children in need of families. Because at the end of the day, family is the answer. Hi everybody, good afternoon. My name is Karina Henson. I am the Managing Director for the ROHEI Foundation here in Manila. So glad you could join us this afternoon for one of our live chats. Really, I can't even begin to tell you how excited I am about this afternoon because our guest this afternoon is one of my dear, dear friends. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a bit. But we just want to put a shout out to everybody to take the time to please do share this on your Facebook pages. You could do a watch party, but we want to make sure we can engage everybody. So if you could share it straight from the ROHEI Foundation Facebook page, that would be great. Keep the comments coming. I think the discussion that we have going this afternoon is going to be very insightful. And I think a lot of people are going to learn about how to give in a more meaningful, sustainable way. And so I think it's going to merit just a really great conversation. So we do want to hear from you. We do want to engage with you on the live chat. So please do that. Encourage your friends. We encourage you to tag your friends, especially because we've got a really cool promo going, gimmick going this afternoon. Our guest today is actually the author of a book called The Giving Back Guidebook. And we're going to flash a little bit about there you go, a little giveaway that we have going today. And all we need you guys to do to qualify for this promo mechanic giveaway thing is to type in the comment section, I admire blank, and tag a friend, and blank, tag another friend, because they live a life of generosity. You know, a lot of us have friends that, we all have that friend that's super generous towards us, or that we've learned a lot about generosity from. And, you know, the two first people that come to mind when you think about this topic of generosity, we would love to give you guys a copy of this book. So please tag them. And we're going to keep this going until Friday or Saturday up to the weekend. And the winners are going to be announced on Sunday at 5 p.m. So we would love for you guys to get your hands on this book. Our guest is also going to share a little bit more about how you can purchase a copy if you just can't wait till Sunday, or if you have a couple of other friends in mind that you would also like to give a copy of the book to. So that's the Giving Back Guidebook. We really hope you participate in that. I think you guys are really going to benefit from this material. So we encourage you to get your hands on that. But yeah, we're ROHEI Foundation, and if it's your first time joining us on one of our live stream chats, I'll tell you a little bit about us. Primarily, we are in advocacy, and our heart is really to create a culture that celebrates adoption. Typically, when you talk about the orphan crisis, people tend to think about orphanages as the solution to the orphan crisis. But we at ROHEI Foundation, we believe that children are not meant to be in the orphanage long term, that it's a temporary, it's like a pit stop in their journey. But in order for that to happen, we really need families to rise up and to say, we're here and we're ready to give a home to these children. And that's why we say family is the answer, and that's the heart behind all that we do. Alongside our advocacy for families, we also run programs for pregnant women in crisis. We've come to discover that a lot of babies are abandoned, aborted, and were sold simply because there are pregnant women who find themselves in crisis situations without lots of options, without any support. And we want to go further upstream and not just figure out what to do when we have orphans, but see if we can prevent orphans from coming into the world, and if we can equip moms to be able to care for their children and support them through difficult pregnancies or through financially difficult times. And so that's our Pregnant Women in Crisis program. If you know anybody, if there's anybody that you've come across who's pregnant and needs support, we do urge you to get in touch with us. We would be happy to see how we can come alongside these women and support them so that, you know, their children can come into the world safely and they too can have a safe pregnancy, and we'll see a world with fewer orphans. So that's the ROHEI Foundation. So I'm going to jump right into talking a little bit about our guest this afternoon. Her name is Joanna Blanding. She's a wife. She's a mother of two. She'll tell us, I'm sure she'll tell us a little bit about her family story a bit later. But she and her husband, Mike, are so instrumental to, you know, just in my life and the way that we set up the ROHEI Foundation. They are dear friends of ours. I think before anything, I can't stress that enough. That as much as I admire them as people, as individuals, I think they're so close to my heart because they really embody this lifestyle of generosity. You know, Jonathan and Mike are really great friends as well. And we share, you know, just our kids are growing up together, and it's wonderful. So, you know, I can't wait for you to meet them. But apart from that, on a professional side, Joanna, she's the founder of Giving is Social. And Giving is Social is a nonprofit group that's currently based out of Singapore. And they provide support for private fundraising and for advocacies. She's also authored a couple of online courses, a journal, which is now available online. She's just launched a leadership coaching program. I mean, this woman is amazing. I mean, there's nothing that this woman can't do. If I think about who I want to be more like, she's definitely one of those people that come to mind. So we're certainly going to learn a lot from her. So I don't want to take any more time talking. I do want to bring her on. So Joanna, are you there?
I am. Hello.
Hi. Oh my goodness.
their photos.
Oh, I know. Joanna's one of my best friends, and she's based in Singapore now, and she runs Giving is Social. It's like a team effort, right? The whole family is in this, and everyone from your two boys were so instrumental in setting up Giving is Social and the work that you're doing today. But I was just hoping we could start by you sharing a little bit about Giving is Social, and then we can talk a little bit about the event that we did together in Singapore in 2018, right?
That's right. Yes. Yeah, sure. So first of all, thank you so much, Karina, for inviting me over. It's really such a pleasure. And your introduction was really very sweet and thoughtful and generous. And yes, so Karina and John cannot be even like closer to us than being our best man and our bridesmaid at our wedding. Yes. So I'll talk about Giving is Social. So Giving is Social is now it is a social enterprise. We first started as a nonprofit, but we realized also because of the philosophy of giving that we espouse that we can be more sustainable if we become a business in the business of creating impact. So we inspire, inform, and connect givers to high impact giving opportunities. And we do this through online events like our FB Live series. We're going to start fundraising soon online as well. We have our products, including books and the book that I've written and journal. The lockdown journal is out as well. And courses to help people get started with their giving journey, and as well as the leadership program and an internship program. So we pretty much reach out to anyone in the world because everything is online now. So that's pretty much it.
That's so amazing. I feel like every time I talk to you, there's a new Giving is Social is doing something new, and I think that's what makes Giving is Social so attractive to I would say a young professional audience primarily, right? I know the Giving Back Guidebook is kind of catered to that young professional audience, and I think that you guys just have a gift at being able to impart this heart of generosity to the people around you. And it's not just generosity like giving away stuff, or I think there's this misconception that to be generous you need to have a lot. To be generous you need to have you need to be extremely wealthy. But what I've seen with you and Mike and your family and the way that Giving is Social operates is it's helping people understand how you can be generous where you are right now and how you can give in a way that really makes impact, rather than giving in kind of a very short-term kind of perspective. And I do want to circle back to say that because of that, the ROHEI Foundation has benefited so much. In 2018, you mounted an event for us that has put us in a place where we've been able to run our Pregnant Women in Crisis program consistently for the last year and a half, because of the generosity of the people that you gathered that evening. We're showing photos of this house. I mean, I think about that that house that we printed out and how we filled it up, and we had this board of stickers where people could support pregnant women in crisis. And I always say, I tell my team that I really did not have enough faith for this event, but surely you and Mike, your faith combined, carried us above and beyond, because within, I would say, the first 30-40 minutes of our 3-hour event, we ran out of things that people could donate towards. Do you remember that? What?
Yes. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
We were really amazed. Yes. We have wonderful friends, and we, just want to thank everyone who, has supported ROHEI Foundation through Giving is Social. And yes, that was a very fun event, especially that, we had a lot of fun music happening and lovely people attending. So, I mean, like what you said, it's all about that. Like, we are not affluent people. We take the public transport here in Singapore. We know of people who are just really willing to give. They just need a platform and a call to action. So we reach out to them through fun ways, like throwing a party, just like what we did in 2018, which we've been doing also for several years now.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. You've created fun ways, and you've made giving a social event, like a social activity, and you're able to create such deep impact at the same time. So let's just deep dive into it. Tell me, why is this topic of generosity so close to your heart? I mean, my top two most generous people I know are you and Mike. I mean, you're just right there. You embody it to the very core. So tell me a little bit about why that is and how that started in you.
Yeah, sure. So, well, thank you again for saying that. But I've just been equally inspired by a lot of people around me, especially when I started going into the volunteering space. So, I would attribute it to my father's involvement in serving the poor. That was, I think, the very first exposure I've had in terms of giving back. So he worked in the government as the commissioner for urban poor. So he really worked closely with the poor population in the Philippines. And then later on, fast forward, there were a lot of opportunities in on campus to volunteer, and I just tried it out. And then fast forward again, I was introduced to a volunteering group called You Happy Events. And that really started my regular volunteering course. Um, and I think it's been a lot of elements here and there of seeing people how they work, how in the volunteering space, in the giving space, and how even without, like you said, without so much, they are able to give. So I've partnered with scholars who used to be the beneficiaries of funds of giving. Now they are the ones starting these initiatives to give back to their communities. So that's
Wow.
like quite amazing. So, and when I see those things, that really fuel me to do more based on what I am capable to do.
Right. And I know there's there's like a science behind this, right? I mean, why is it that, people want to be generous, but when you talk about being generous, or giving and supporting things that are happening in the world around us, the needs around us, it's not always easy. Um, but somehow there's a trigger we want to, but there are a lot of things clouding our judgment when it
Mhm.
comes to being generous.
That's right. Yeah. So you mentioned two things, like people are willing to give, but it takes a while for people to start giving. And sometimes they don't even get to start it because of, just probably challenges they meet along the way, or just because they think it's very complicated. So, and that's basically why I'm really very not obsessed, let's use the word obsessed, about teaching people how to give, because they are willing, there is that capacity, but they just don't know where to start. Period. They don't know where to start because there are a lot of nonprofit groups to choose from. They feel that there are a lot of illegitimate ones around as well. So first truth that I always start with is the fact that we are all created generous. So that's like, wow, that's a golden truth to have, right? And science confirmed that. Like, we've been talking about purpose more and more, especially during this pandemic. And we've been asking ourselves, what is really the purpose of life now that, I can't really travel, I can't, go to the, shop as much as I usually would. We are moving, a bit back or stepping back and looking at our life and wondering what is really our purpose in life. And that's a good place to be in because from there, we will find out that we have a purpose, and generosity or giving back is very intertwined with that purpose. So science as well has confirmed through so many studies. There's a recent one actually that has just been released about how we have that generosity gene in us, meaning there is wiring in our brain to actually give back, to be generous, to be altruistic. And if you believe in what the Bible says about us being created in the image and likeness of God, then you will know that that's very much like what science is also saying, right? And we've seen Jesus as a as an example, as a strong example. in terms of how we can be generous. So there is that capacity. So we can start from there. And then now the question is, how do we start? And that's why I wrote the book. And that's why I've been writing courses about it. Because when I was starting Giving is Social back in 2013, I sat down with a couple of, corporate people, young professionals, and at the same time nonprofits. And for some reason, they were not meeting. Like there's this camp that's just very interested to give, and then there's this population or group of nonprofits, but they don't seem to meet halfway. And it's just because maybe it's the language that kind of like challenge the non-profit people, like ordinary people, like, so how do you actually like donate, how do you volunteer, do I have to give up my life for it? So there's that, there's that stigma possibly, and others have also gone through the journey and have gotten disappointed because they didn't have a very fulfilling experience giving back. So these are the things that I try to address in my teaching, in my courses. But it can be addressed through just a step-by-step process. So.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's so interesting just to know that to be generous is something that's innate within us. Like how you put it that way, right? That we have that generosity gene, like you said. And a lot of times it's just a matter of how do I use that? And like we sometimes question a little bit about when you said there's that disconnect between the nonprofits and then those who want to support, and there's kind of like a how do I know what exactly do I do so that I don't just give in a way that I'm giving for the sake of just giving, right? And one of the things that I've learned a lot from you about is this idea of the difference between traditional charity and sustainable generosity. I've learned so much from you about this, and it's been instrumental in the way that we've designed the way the ROHEI Foundation works. So maybe you could share a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. So backstory, I've been, in the nonprofit or volunteering space for over 10 years now, and I've learned a lot. So this is me, sharing with people that I've done a lot of things the wrong way before, but it's okay. I mean, we can learn. That's why I'm here to help people start the right way. So I had my own observations in the course of my giving back, and I've observed that there are things that we do that are very popular, in terms of how we give. Like we go to charitable institutions and give what we have before we can actually ask them what they need. We visit orphanages to see children and play with them. So these are well-meaning activities, well-meaning efforts that we see from people. But Karina, if I tell you, Karina and John, Mike and I are going to send you gifts for your kids because we think you need charity. You need our charity because we pity you. What would you feel?
Right. I mean, like
it probably wouldn't.
Yeah, a little hurt. Yeah.
And of course, we wouldn't do that and we wouldn't say that because you have everything materially that you need already. You're such a blessed family. But I say that because this is what even psychologists have found out, that when you tell someone that they are being charitable to another person, it's it hurts. It hurts the feelings of the other camp, and it's astounding because the original word for charity is actually agape, which is love, pure love. But over the course of time, that meaning has changed because of the practice that has been attached to it.
Right.
So looking at how we practice charity today, it isn't anymore about giving hope, which is basically, the original sense of the word. It's become more about doing what we, the giver, thinks is suitable for the other person. Yes, there are still no obligations, but there is also usually no consideration for what the receiver really needs and how they feel. There is also a lot of underlying assumptions made by the giver who holds the resources on what would be best to improve or how to best improve the lives of those who are in need. And
Right.
that's when, the receiving end feels like, I don't want to be a charity case. So let me share an example. So I've started reading the book of Robert Lupton. So he's a veteran in the community development space. He's from the US, and he's lived with, the poorest of the poor in the state of Atlanta, and
Okay.
has really worked, you know, um, years of his life to give back to the community. There was one event that they did. It was a Christmas event, a couple of years ago, and it was, one of those things that we would also do where we are, like give gift packs of goodie bags filled
Oh,
with.
especially in the Philippines, right? They love the Christmas party,
Yes,
birthday party.
Christmas
Yeah.
time. So this happened actually during Christmas time, and they brought gifts for the kids. And then when the givers, this group of well-meaning people came to the community, passed their goods to or their gifts to the families, to the children. Bob Lopton and his team observed that the fathers in the homes actually exited. They left the house. And then they observed that, frequently in the course of their, week long, month long activities. And then later on, when they had touched base with, the fathers, they found out that they felt like they were stripped of their dignity. And that was very saddening, right? Because Bob Lopton's team of Focused Community Strategies, FCS, came with great intentions.
Yeah.
But actually, they were creating more harm. And the point of the fathers was strangers can give these gifts to our children, but we can't. And it's a very heartbreaking thing for fathers apparently to feel.
Yeah.
And so they changed the way they dealt with giving. What they started doing was putting up a thrift store for for the community to have a chance to work in or work at, and they would sell stuff at very great discounts. And the fathers now are able to buy something at an affordable price to give to their kids
Wow.
because it matters more to people when they are able to have a stake on the thing that they have. And there are a lot of other studies that are not really, Christian in background that have been said about this. Like, in Africa, when you give away nets to a malaria infected or malaria prone town, you'll observe months after that the families actually wouldn't make use of them because they didn't buy it. They didn't buy them. But when you give them at a discount, they are actually more inclined to use them. So
Wow.
that's one of the things or philosophies that I now I practice, like giving without creating more damage. I've seen this also in the Philippines when we were doing a lot of volunteering, going to low income communities, give gifts, come back after a month, do it again. And then what I've observed is that when we don't give enough, the people there felt like they needed to demand for these gifts. And
Right.
that's psychology. You can't blame them. We are responsible as givers for the emotions that we stir among the people that we're giving to. Entitlement and dependency are potential results of mis, or inappropriate givings or giving that does not really support the abilities of the people we're giving to. And much closer to home, I mean, to you guys is, the traditional or popular way of um, help or volunteering, wherein people go to orphanages. And I agree with you, Karina. Our philosophy as well in giving a social is that children deserve to be in families. That's why we've decided to support ROHEI Foundation because we believe in that philosophy. We believe that the best way for the children to experience a flourishing future is to be with families, not to be institutionalized. And when we visit as volunteers to, orphanages, shelters, to just check it out and play for a bit and not really have a plan to partner with them long term,
Right.
it does more harm psychologically, especially that these are vulnerable populations of children. So we try to avoid those. So those are just examples of how, traditional charity efforts are not really doing well or are not producing, positive results to the people we're trying to help. And we're
Yeah.
trying to do that.
Right. I think, thank you for sharing that, because I've observed that a lot, specifically because of the work of ROHEI Foundation, dealing with trying to address the orphan crisis. And the first one that comes to mind is, like we used to get asked a lot, how can we help? Can I send over some pre-loved baby clothes? And, I gladly receive all the donations that come. We're very grateful. But I can already tell that had this come at a different time, this could have been more of an inconvenience to me, because I would have to get a team together to sort through baby clothes, because we're not a children's home and we're supporting families who would like to adopt. What we do is we keep those clothes and we allocate them every time that the child is surrendered or rescued. But that what you mentioned about asking first, how can I help you? How can I give to where it's needed? How can I actually, just checking in with the organizations that you want to partner with? And I think because we both went to the same university, we went to the same school, and I think Philippine education on a college level, on a high school level, you're exposed to a lot of opportunities to volunteer and do stuff. Yeah. And we get used to that, just like as a practice, that I personally reached the point where I said, I'm not really sure am I doing this just to make myself feel good? Because I'm not really sure what we were able to do when we went and visited that place that we went, whether it was a children's home, an orphanage, or the home for the elderly, or for people with special needs, or whatever that might have been. You sometimes leave feeling like, okay, well, I feel good, but I wonder how they felt after that encounter. And I now have come to discover that sometimes it's very traumatic for children. And I now understand why children's homes say, we don't accept visitors, or we'd rather you don't come and throw a party, because then it's just a party. And so I love that. And I think that what's really great about giving is social. It's helping people helping people understand, how do we really make impact, right? What's really meaningful, and what's really sustainable. And I think that's at the heart of what you're sharing. Right. So do you have any thoughts about that, specifically like here in the Philippines? What could people do? I mean, we have a lot of our volunteers watching, or here in Asia, and I'm seeing a lot of even friends from Singapore that are online. And I mean, do you have any practical tips for people who now are thinking like, oops, was I doing something that maybe actually might not have been too helpful before? How can I take a step back, and how can I rethink this so that I can give in a way that really makes impact?
Yeah, so there are a couple of ways. Of course, primarily it'll be funds that nonprofits would need, an unrestricted fund, or donation. And I speak on behalf of nonprofits. I've observed that, a lot of givers would want a specific usage for the donations that they give, and that's fine. And because it's an emotional give, right? And then it's an emotional action when we give our money, hard-earned money. But, and nonprofits probably are shy to say this, but what will liberate nonprofits to do what they're good at doing, which is to solve social issues, is to use the money that we give without restrictions, because operating expenses are high. Imagine nonprofits being businesses. They have, operating expenses. They would pay social workers to run all these, caseworks. And that's very true for ROHEI Foundation. So first, giving without restriction to your money is the best way. And to gain confidence about the organization that you're giving to, will require sitting into conversations like this, like listening into whatever webinars they're holding or FB live series. Try doing 1, 2, or 3 sessions to gain that confidence. Join their newsletter, because that's where they tell stories. That's a good start. Gain confidence so that when you give money, you know that, okay, I'm fine without, it being earmarked for specifically, computers for children or for this. Next is your influence. So everyone is on social
Yeah,
media, and it's such a powerful tool. So
it
just
really is.
recently, I had the honor to participate in a Mother's Day campaign video involving, influencers from the Philippines. I don't know why I was part
You
of it
among many other beautiful women.
as part of the roster, but basically it was
Right.
just online. And the genesis of that, it was supposed to be a big party in the Philippines, to like a physical event, but
Right.
because it couldn't be done. So this amazing lady, Amanda Jacob Griffin, who is now here in Singapore, said, "Okay, let's just get these ladies together, do a social media campaign, and raise money." And they were able to do that. So these nonprofit groups like ROHEI Foundation would have their social media kits. They would have materials that are already online. You can see them on IG stories, resharing, because there are people who are ready to give, who have money, but they just need, several people confirming that it is the group to be given to,
Right.
or that it is, a legitimate group, and people, vouch for them. So we need that. We need that noise, to be created for the groups that we advocate for. So of course, you step back and pick a group that you can advocate for and do it for a period of time. Give yourself a deadline, say 6 months. I'll just be focusing on this group. Because if you try to support too many, you also get overwhelmed because you join the ride, right? So yeah, just have focus. Volunteering has changed over the years. Again, it's no longer about going to the like food pantry to cook meals. That still happens, which is good, but because of COVID, you can't do that anymore,
Yeah.
right? Um, Instead, you can do micro volunteering. If you're a graphic designer and a nonprofit group needs your help in designing a material, um, release the urge to meet the beneficiaries, the end beneficiaries, because that's also an emotional thing for us. Like we want to be with the kids, when we talk about volunteering, but really it's not the most effective thing, especially if you're talking about orphan children. Like you can't be
Right.
interacting with them. Again, there is a psychological effect when we do those short-term interactions. Instead, make use of whatever you are good at already. You have an amazing team, Krina, behind, ROHEI Foundation. Even this FB live series is so professional. It's so excellent. And it's being done by, Jazz, who's a volunteer. And that's amazing. So we need more Jasmine when we need
We
more
do.
people like her to actually put in even just, 30 minutes of their time to sort out, let's say, an accounting document, or, do admin stuff, or even just voice record. If you have a good voice, I have a list that I can give you of the things that you can
Wow.
do. Gosh, it's exciting. It's fun.
It's so exciting to hear you say that because these are the things that I mean I could relate so much because we get asked that all the time. Can we come and volunteer? And then we ask, sure, we would love to have you volunteer. What would you like to do, or what area would you like to volunteer in? And they'll say, can we come and visit the kids? And I'll say, well, the heart behind what we do is that our heart is actually empty orphanages, empty institutions. And so when we achieve that, ideally, we don't want you to have to visit anybody.
Yeah.
We want you to continue to advocate for us. And you can do that with your influence on social media. You can do that with your influence amongst your friends. And that is exactly what you and your husband have done so well, Joanna. Like, that is your gift. I think using your influence. And I like what you said about being able to sometimes connect the right people, people who have deeper pockets or additional resources, and are looking for avenues to give but don't know, sometimes you can use your influence to say, hey, this is what this organization is doing, and this is why I think it's meaningful, and that makes a huge difference. One story for us that I just wanted to share was that because of our social media posts, we actually found out that there was a family that adopted a child simply by following us on Facebook. They went from thinking, oh, what's this? I'm not sure if I'm ready to adopt. I don't know how to do this, to following our post online, to eventually adopting a child. And so I was crying when I heard that, because I said, imagine if we just said, let's not waste time doing this. Let's not post anything. Because of the hard work of volunteers who worked on simple social media posts, a child was adopted, and a child now has a family. There's one less orphan in the world. And I think about that for us, and I think about that for other organizations like you're sharing. And what you're doing is amazing, just equipping people to think that way. So it really is life transforming. And I know you have some stories about how people's lives have been transformed on a personal level simply because of just practicing this lifestyle. Do you want to share a little bit about, you were telling me a little bit about one of our friends who...
Yeah, I have a lot of stories. If I could,
we
write.
could go on all day. You just attract birds of the same feather.
Aw, you're sweet. But yeah, so you mentioned about life transforming generosity, and that's basically, again, the kind of giving or generosity that I espouse. I've written about it in the book, in the courses, and it's basically that kind of generosity, a lifestyle, that fulfills your purpose, that maximizes your influence, and that transforms lives. And transformation, meaning not just of the people that you're helping, but of your own as well. So there is one friend who, I'll call her Sue. I posted about her on social media. And basically she, is this high-flying corporate worker and was working for many, many years, and then had a bit of before that. So she has always been, or had always been, interested in volunteering. So she reached out to me, knowing that, I do this on the side. I was still in corporate then. And we planned out something for her to do a midterm volunteering stint with a shelter in Pattaya, Thailand. But it was not, happily ever after that meeting, because it took her 1 year to actually brew in that plan, to brew in for that plan to brew in her. And then finally, when she reached out, I said, okay, let's do it. Are you ready? And I'm kind of used to that now, because usually it takes, quite some time for people to come around. They have this need, this interest to give, but then they only take action, after some time, but that's okay. And then when she finally said, okay, let's do it, she was just on a roll. Like, she used her influence. She used her corporate network to raise funds for the shelter in Pattaya. She raised maybe 30,000 just by connecting with her friends through multiple events in a course of...
You're saying $30,000, right?
Dollars, yes.
Yeah.
So that's almost 1 million pesos. And she did really fun events, because giving is social is also about that. We do fun events. We did, wine tasting events. We did a trivia night. So anything that you would ordinarily do on a weekend pre-COVID, now we can do that online. And fast forward, she lost her job. She had a family crisis and really had this question about her purpose in life. And you know what really sailed her through, what helped her cope, is that idea that, wow, she has the capacity to still give, even with all the turmoils that, she went through during that period. And then fast forward again, when she was ready to go back to the workplace, she was employed by someone, a business owner, who she met at a networking event, who got interested in her story as a volunteer. Of course, she's a very competent,
Right.
professional, but he was more interested in what she was doing outside of work, because for that, purpose-minded company that she's now working with, she felt like that person felt like, I can partner with this person because she's with a purpose. Like, she knows her purpose. It's not just all about making money. And that, really flourished, helped flourish her career as well. So again, giving back is very intertwined with our purpose in life. When we satisfy that calling to give, then we feel purposeful. It's basically about that. That's what life transforming, generosity is about. We're not just changing our life, but other people's lives as well.
Right. And I mean, I think that you're able to talk about this with such authority, Joanna, because it's so true for your family. And I want to give you the chance to share a little bit about your family and
Mhm.
how giving has become so instrumental in positioning you guys now where you are. You know, even your husband's corporate job has a lot to do with giving and being generous. And then your two boys, and I know the life of your son, Matteo, his legacy lives on because of that. So can you share with us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I'll go back to that time when I was prompted to give sacrificially. So in the book, I talk about the characteristics of life transforming generosity based on what I found in the Bible. And one of them is, it being loving, second, it being responsible, it being sacrificial. We were bankrupt. This was before I got married, Karina, and our family, but my biological family went bankrupt. But then I had that urge to give, and I was like, and I knew it was prompting from God. I was, earning well from my corporate career, but of course, like, I had a lot of responsibilities. Um, and I just decided to give, not only money, but also volunteering, because I knew that I have to be wise as well, that I have to take care of, my needs or my family's needs first. And then fast forward, that really propelled me to speaking more about what sacrificial giving is, that is also rewarding. So I just really said, Lord, I will try this out. Like, I will, keep doing this and see how you work in my life. So from there, I had a really good job offer from Singapore. After that period of just volunteering in the Philippines, it really flourished in my corporate career here. And then I met Mike, who is such a giver. We met at, ROHEI Foundation while we were volunteering. So hint, hint to the single people there. That's your, future spouse. So we met at a volunteering event. Mike has been my inspiration as well in terms of giving. You say that I'm generous, it's just because of the people that has inspired that have inspired me, plus my husband being such a generous person. And we decided, so he's this type. He would ask, so I'm the accountant in the family, but he's the one who makes the money. I just give it away. Or he tells me who to give it
Good
away.
setup.
Yeah. And then so he would, he encouraged me and inspired me to mark out a portion of our earnings, our income every month for benevolence. And this is apart from tithing. All right. Tithing is, of course, always there. But then on top of that, he said, why don't we mark, X amount for giving, so that when someone or a group comes to us and we feel called to give to that person, it's already there. Because, and I think it's a very smart and wise way to give, because I've experienced also previously, especially living in the Philippines, there are always these requests to give, da da da. And when you're caught up with, you're caught um, at a moment when you don't really have, something earmarked for giving, you feel depressed and frustrated that you're not able to give, and you feel
Exactly.
also resentful that you're being asked to give. All those emotions come to play. So yeah, so now we earmark our a portion of our income for giving. And then again, we know that we can do more than that, so we do these fundraisers once a year at least. And a testimony to that is when we did ROHEI, the concert featuring Shamora for ROHEI Foundation. um, the day actually I'm all about, linking all these things that God orchestrated. I got pregnant. I was pregnant apparently on the day. My conception of Matteo was on the day when we did Shamara's concert for ROHEI Foundation. Fast forward, we lost Matteo. Okay, we lost Matteo early this year to a weird bacterial infection. We're still in grief, but our grief has been also very purposeful because during the time when he was alive, he was very much involved in our advocacies. He sat through meetings with nonprofit groups. He he was just such a gentle baby that, he allowed me and Mike to do the things that we, want to do outside of our family life and bringing our family along. And the story, his Mateo's story brought people together during that trying time. And just yesterday, actually, we learned from so after he passed away, we were encouraged and inspired by some friends to create a legacy fund of some sort, basically uh, under Mateo's name. We can pool people's donations to give to another nonprofit, IJM, who you are equally very, you know them. And just recently, we learned that through Mighty Mateo's name, I'm gonna cry. It has raised 34,000 USD or SGD, but that's a lot of money in just a couple of months. And it's because God has given us, I guess, that blessing of influence to encourage people to give. And I really encourage people, you don't have to have, a story like ours, but you have the influence to, share with people or to advocate on behalf of nonprofit groups and share with people whatever you have in your hands. So yeah.
Yeah, I think yeah, I'm gonna cry. No, I think thinking about how you've allowed this to shape the way you face even grief and even the loss of your son, and allowed there to be purpose in that, and seeing that when you're generous and you live a life of generosity, people are generous back towards you, and you reap that in a different way. And I think we saw that through Mateo's life, just a reaping of um, people coming together and community surrounding you guys with love and support, and that's so inspiring, and I think that's really what gives you so much credibility on this topic, is because you live it to your very core. And we love you, we love your boys so much. There's so many comments right now, so I'm like just I'm trying to sift through them here on the side. A lot of people are just really encouraged and so inspired by this, learning a lot. Some people were talking about, there really is something called toxic charity.
Yeah, it's about Robert Lupton. That was what got me started. Yeah.
Right. So,
and you can watch also Poverty Inc. It's a video that they can watch online, why aid is not really very effective anymore.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think these are great resources, guys, because, we're coming into a new time. And especially, I think, because of COVID and because of the lockdown, I think people are forced to think a little bit out of the box, to think more out of the box, and to say, how can I continue to help, and how can I support, the needs of those around me, given the limitations. And actually, I find that it's actually leading to people giving more meaningfully and more sustainably, because sure, your presence is valuable. I'm not saying, you shouldn't be volunteering physically. That's always valuable, but it's just causing people to think and give a little bit more intentionally. So yeah, and so I also love it. A lot of people are telling us about, tagging their friends about who lives a life of generosity. But we do want to give people a chance. If you have any questions, send them our way. We do want to hear about that. In the meantime, I just want to ask Joanna, how can people support Giving is Social right now? And how can people partner with you guys? What have you guys been up to? Maybe you want to tell us a little bit about the Mighty Matteo Fund as well.
Yeah, sure. So basically, we don't. Well, it's so boastful to say we don't need the support, but yes, we need your support so we can support nonprofits like ROHEI Foundation and IJN. But basically, we are here to support you guys in your giving back journey. So if you are, someone, an individual who, has this question of how to start, where do I begin? You know, connect with us on Instagram, or I think our IG and FB accounts will be flashed there. Um, we have a leadership program that's happening. We can start with, a 30-minute call just for me to understand where you are right now. And then we'll see if, you would want to proceed to 5-month long leadership coaching with me. Apart from that, if you want to volunteer your time, especially during this COVID, period, we have an internship program as well. We have a list already of things that you enjoy to do. Um, and we are raising funds for another group through the Mighty Matteo Legacy, but you can find details on that from our IG and FB account as well. We're always here to support ROHEI Foundation as well. If you want us to tell you more about them, if you, I mean, that's basically our role, like to be your spokes, person. Um, and yeah, what else? Yeah, just really um, energizing that connection there. If you know anyone or in the corporate space, anyone in the corporate space or a company who, that want their people, their staff to be more purpose minded, we have a module for them as well. We can do, something that's more designed for corporate workers as a team, so that, outside of work, they can do something, and within, their within their team, they can always have that mindset of purpose and giving back.
Perfect. Okay, what a question came in. Count on our good friend Katrina Rankama to pose some really good questions. Kat's asking, how do we start learning to give more purposefully, and how do we take others along for that journey? I think that's a great question, because people want to give. How do you do it purposefully, and how do you do it so you're not weird? Or how do you do it so that you can make it look attractive to other people?
Yeah, well, first, I can rattle off talking about the content of the book, but you can get the book or sign up for the course. The ebook is, $2.99 on Amazon.com. But the book talks about what the first step, which is first carving out time to actually get started with this. So your minimum margin in your time, because volunteering, giving back will require a bit of time. You start from there, even if it's just 15 minutes of your week. And then there's an exercise that I talk about, which is the personal mission statement exercise, which will be a very pivotal, thing in your journey, because it will really zoom into what you are uniquely created to do. And there's, a method to find out what your personal mission statement is. And, companies have that. Nonprofit organizations have a mission statement. Why can't we have one? So that's the starting point. And then, there are other exercises that you'll find in the course and in the book that will tell you exactly what that is. So the book is not about the fluffy, concepts of give back. Like, how do you actually do it? I present,
Real practical.
I present those steps in the book. And then how do you get others to do it? Of course, you'll have to embrace it, embrace the concept, embrace the lifestyle yourself, and then they will just see it in you. It's really just the action that we show people that will invite them, that will confirm to them that, okay, I want that too, I want that in my life. And of course, like, my social media is also full of that, like, not about like what I do, but what others are able to do in their giving, journeys. And I share that, and then I talk about, our own experiences in one-on-one conversations. And that's when people start saying, I want that. Like it looks fun. It looks very fulfilling. I want to, take that ride too.
Great. I think that's super practical. I mean, I think that was a really great tip. I like what you said about 15 minutes to understand and to invest and to say, maybe I need to get to know this organization. Maybe I just need to check out their website, understand what they're doing, and see if something in me is, if I'm triggered by that,
Mm.
and then to see if that's something I want to invest time in. And then moving forward, say, could I be willing to maybe share one of their posts once a week, or or maybe could I be willing to read some of their articles? And I think those are all, as a nonprofit, to me that's meaningful. I mean, we love it when people share our stuff, and we think whoever gets to see it, we hope would benefit from that. And then taking people along for the journey, absolutely right. I mean, that's what you guys do, and I think that's how Giving is Social started. It's just you guys were doing it, and because of your life of generosity, you've managed to influence so many and attract so many towards that same life. So, Joanna, I want to really thank you so much for doing this. I think that what you and Mike are doing, and your team at Giving is Social, and the other stuff that you've been doing on the side, it's so meaningful, and it has been instrumental for us on a very personal level as the ROHEI Foundation. We're so grateful for all that you've done. We've learned so much, and I'm sure that our viewers have learned as well. So we just want to before we let you go, how can people get in touch with you if they have more questions and they're being shy? How can they get in touch with you and connect to find out more?
Yeah, there you go. Giving is Social is on
Okay.
Facebook and on Instagram. We're very active on those social media accounts.
All
Thank
right.
you so much, Karina. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. It's such an honor. You are my
Oh,
inspiration.
pleasure is ours. I'm so glad we had fun today. Thank you. All right. Well, so that was Joanna Blanding, the founder of Giving is Social, not just super mom, super woman in every way possible. I know few people as organized and as efficient and effective as Joanna Blanding. So I do hope that you would share this. We really, I mean, I feel that a lot of people could greatly benefit from hearing what Dan has shared today, which is why we want to make this live stream available for reshare. Also because we want to be able to keep the promo going, and we want to give as many people as possible a copy of that book. So we're going to be choosing, I think, 2 or 3 people who are going to get a copy of that book. So a few people have already typed in their responses in the comment section. You can continue to type in the names of your friends or people who have inspired you to live a life of generosity, people that you admire. Continue to type that in the comment section so that they would see this video, so that they would be able to understand a little bit more about how to give sustainably, meaningfully, in a way that's truly impactful. But yeah, so please do that. It's going to be you can do that, and we're going to wrap up the promo on Sunday, but you can obviously continue to share this with your friends. Yes, I agree. We're getting some comments here. Zena, who was our guest last week, was saying this pandemic is the best season to be generous. It's true. And I've seen that. I've seen the amount of generosity that's coming out of people in the midst of a hard time, and it's very inspiring. It's inspiring for us as well, who we've been recipients of that. But I do agree. There's so many opportunities, and I encourage you guys to get involved. I encourage you guys to connect with Giving is Social with Joanna to understand more. Get a copy of the Giving Back Guidebook. You guys are going to love it. And we will see you again for another live chat in a week or so. Till then, I hope you guys have a great week. Keep in touch with us. Feel free to connect with us on our social media platforms. If you want to schedule an online consult with us, you can do that as well. Or if you'd like to refer a pregnant woman in crisis, please do reach out to us on our social media platforms. That's it for me. Bye.
I was telling her, you should have three dads. You have your biological dad, you know, it's putting in your head. You have your logical dad, and you have your real dad, you know. So doing it this way, and then eventually, before she was 5, she was asking the question, and we were able to sort it out really well.
We're here because adoption was God's idea, and we hope the church would catch on to that. And so that's really the heart of the ROHEI Foundation.
You will impact generations of people. Because that person will be married, will have children, and children's children. I'll tell you, the impact you make in their lives will impact future generations of people. There are no unwanted children, just unfound families. I hope you find some of them right here in this room.
This is the truth that the world needs to hear today, that adoption is at the very heart of the gospel.
That adoption is a beautiful thing. It's not plan B. We adopted because we saw just how beautiful adoption was in the Bible.